Hello everyone, this is part 29 of What If Naruto Was Born in the Uzumaki clan, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Orochimaru could scarcely believe what he was seeing. He had thought of a dozen different possibilities, but none as worse as this. It was a phenomenon no rational man could ever dream of, and yet it was happening right before his very eyes. His enemies, who should be running, cowering, or themselves, were doing the exact opposite. They were charging right at him with M in their eyes. And the one leading them had madness lurking in his cold blue eyes. The first chakra chain marred in dark energy was the first blow that shattered Orochimaru's master plan, as Minato and Obito was sent sailing away by none other than Naruto himself. The ghost of Tobirama flashed right above the charging king, only to be punched brutally that sent him sailing away. Even from this closing distance, the raw fury and hate cackled the cold air as Naruto butchered each and everything that came in his way. Nor the sight of his reanimated father or brother, or the presence of the greatest cages of the world stopped the raw hatred burning in the redhead's eyes. And behind him came roaring the 17,000 strong Union forces, every warrior charged by the sight of the king thrashing, who were once thought to be the greatest shinobi that walked this earth. Naruto jumped off his wolf and stared at the reassembled sea before him. All five of them staring blankly at him. Orochimaru glared at him as he stood behind these great warriors and his ragtag army of misfits. In another life, their sides could have been the opposite, with Naruto defending Konoha and Orochimaru hell-bent on destroying it. But it was not this realm. "You will hear, you insolent brat," cursed Orochimaru. Naruto's face was set in stone as he glared right into the snake's eyes, sending an involuntary chill down the Hokage's spine. "I know." Orochimaru's eyes slightly widened as he saw the same look in the boy's eyes, one which he had when they first met in that secret lab of Konoha. "We both are men of darkness, Orochimaru. You defied the S, and I have the B of innocence on my hands. But know this, I don't fear death. Can you say the same? Because know this, I am not S without taking you with me to the deepest pits of hell," promised Naruto, as his eyes turned red like a demon. Orochimaru saw the Union army was extremely close and knew his forces would be butchered in barely an hour with those many forces. So he raised his one true hand and the Hokages blurred out of sight. There was a resounding crash as Naruto flashed in mid-air right between the Union army and the charging monsters of Konoha. Without hesitation, he brought his sword forward, clashing it right against Tobirama's powerful steel. Minato flashed right behind his own son Rasengan, ready only for a chakra chain to emerge from Naruto's back, but the yellow flash evaded without hesitation, this time with his trademark move. With one hand locked in a clash of swords with Tobirama, Naruto had to use his other hand to deflect Hiruzen's staff right into Hashirama's sea, sending the first Hokage sailing away. One brutal kick had Hiruzen sailing away in the opposite direction. Before the struck warriors could move back into the fight, the thousands of Union forces descended down upon him like hungry wolves, and Naruto didn't blink an eye as the fight began in earnest. Whatever sorcery Orochimaru had used, he refused to believe that the sea standing before him were his father or half-brother. They were S. They had S with honor. And nothing that foul monster would do could tarnish that image in Naruto's mind. All these S standing before him were nothing but puppets, and he refused to feel any sympathy for any of them. His training kicked in fully, and he showed Tobirama as to why he was feared. Naruto pushed the white-haired man back and back with each strike faster and more powerful than before. He saw Orochimaru about to join the fight himself, but was stopped when Hanzo and Galatea stepped before him. Focusing back on the fight, Naruto evaded a swift strike from the Nadaime by back-flipping several feet away. And that was a mistake. Tobirama flashed right through Naruto at speed rivaling the yellow flash, with his sword carving clean through his foe's body. The Sea of Tobirama had just finished his move when Naruto appeared right behind the former Hokage, clean through the heart as the flames of hellfire burned the Hokage alive, but the man didn't scream. He tried to flash again in order to disappear, but Naruto grabbed him firmly an anti-teleportation seal on the sea. He watched in disgust as the man burned, but something foul kept on regenerating his dissolving body parts again and again. If not for the anti-teleportation seal S on his body, the former Hokage would have flashed away again. There's no doubt about it now. It's Edo Tensei, thought Naruto grimly, as he remembered in his memories Madara had thought this jutsu would bring him back to life and in his prime before he forced Naruto to use the Rinnegan of his to revive him fully. The irony was not lost here as Naruto saw it was the Tobirama, the creator of this jutsu who was being used in the first place. But every jutsu had a weakness and Madara had known this once. And through the now Uchiha patriarch, Naruto knew it as well. He glanced at the battlefield and only saw chaos everywhere. His soldiers were by the dozens but as hard it was to see they were also keeping the reanimated cages and his father quite occupied, leaving him the chance to finish the madman who started this disgusting mess. Tobirama seemed trapped for now and he added a few more seals to make it remain so. When he turned back, he came face to face with him. It was as if someone had a sword clean through his heart as he saw half-brother staring blankly at him. Obito looked so young despite his blank gaze. With their father, it had been different for Minato had chosen to while protecting his family and village at the same time. But Obito betrayed his own village just so that Naruto could live with his mother. Tears came in Naruto's eyes and he couldn't move even as his brother charged at him. The sword in his hand started shaking badly as grief and guilt overwhelmed his heart. The rage in his heart was overpowered by the thought that his brother would never live a full life, would never fall in love, or have children. And it was because of him. Obito jumped in the air, sword ready to behead his paralyzed older half-brother. The weapon arched towards the king's end only to be met with another sword. Nagato held his ground even as the Uchiha pushed until a staff sailed towards him that made Obito to immediately backflip away. Daibutsu didn't relent as he continued to attack the reanimated ghost until Obito's Mangekyo came alive and he suddenly passed right through the muscled boy as if he was never there. Daibutsu's eyes widened when he saw the sword about to his back from Obito until a hand caught the blade firmly shattering it to dust. Naruto recognized neither shock or anger in his brother's eyes as his weapon was destroyed. Neither did Obito utter a word when the king his flaming sword right through the younger boy's But someone did scream and it was that of a broken heart. Naruto was the one screaming as he watched his brother burn right in front of his eyes. Memories of his father's death, his village's and that of his people, of Yahiko and Kyusuke's death came haunting back in his heart. He had to move in order to save Daibutsu and his own brother but it felt as if he was the one burning. It was him that should be in Obito's place yet here he stood in the middle of this madness that he had started in the first place. Nagato had already gathered a few Uzumaki who formed the Four Seals barrier trapping both Tobirama and Obito. Daibutsu was about to place a hand on his grieving friend's shoulder when the air around him turned icy cold. He coughed violently and screamed a moment later making Naruto turn back to watch in horror as a massive Rasengan was jammed in his friend's gut. He sent his sword right towards his father's face but the man disappeared in a bright yellow flash as Daibutsu collapsed to his knees. Daibutsu. He stopped his friend from falling straight into the ground. Looking at his wounds, Naruto whistled quickly as Ghost came charging through the field tearing a men that dared get in his way. Get him to medical, now. Barked Naruto furiously, earning quick nods from the nearby northern soldiers who formed a protective formation around the wounded Domino. Naruto didn't get the time to see his friend being carried to safety as that moment a huge chakra explosion followed. His eyes widened. Mokuton Hijutsu, Jukai Koten, would release secret technique, nativity of world of trees. Right before his very eyes emerged an entire forest full of thousands of trees that tore thousands upon thousands of Union forces in seconds. Men and women screamed as they were literally skewered through, trampled and buried, or painfully strangled to death in the branches of the enormous forest that continued to grow larger and We won't have an army left at this rate, shouted Nagato in fear and anger. Naruto was too frozen and horrified to hear those words as right in front of his eyes Minato also continued to butcher hundreds of shinobi before people could even blink and Hiruzen pummeled and thrashed dozens with his mighty staff. It was Never had Naruto felt so outclassed and helpless. These were no men. They were gods. He had been the one who came Madara truly but the Uchiha patriarch had been a fragile old man barely capable of even a decent fight. Watching Hashirama and Hiruzen's power along with Minato's speed made one thing clear to the king. His army could not defeat these gods. Nor could he himself even with all the help around. They were simply too strong and even more together. The fact was made even more clear as Minato flashed right behind the Kazekage and carved the man from top to bottom in one single strike. As their leader fell, the Suna forces nearby trembled and started to run away, but it was useless as Minato pursued them like a hellhound, putting them all to death in seconds. Nagato. The panicked Uzumaki boy looked at his friend, who had a disturbingly calm look on his face and a strange glint in his hard eyes. Keep the army together. With those words, Naruto was gone in a brilliant dark flash, emerging right behind Minato. Before the S-man could react, his son grabbed him and they both vanished together. The king again flashed 2 more times, grabbing the rampaging Hiruzen and Hashirama before vanishing away. It happened so fast that Nagato and the others around him could barely blink before Naruto reappeared near Orochimaru and his captives brutally against the ground. Hanzo, Galatea and Kisame had already been battling against Orochimaru and stepped beside the king, as Tsunade and Jiraiya stormed through just in time as Naruto finished his hand seals as 4 shadow clones of him appeared around the battlefield. Shisekyojin, 4 Red Yang formation. A massive red-colored fortress-like barrier sprang around the entire area, trapping Naruto's group and their enemies within. The king gasped and fell to one knee as the jutsu ate through his chakra reserves at great speed, but this was the ultimate barrier ninjutsu he had learned from Madara's memories. One that was powerful enough to trap even the 10 tails itself had it been present. He didn't look back, for he knew his friends, soldiers and Konan would be panicking and screaming at him to let them in this death trap. But he could not take that chance, for even a minor slip and those powerful Hokages would escape again and the Union forces could not suffer another Thousands were already with many more wounded. Tsunade immediately knelt beside the young Uzumaki and started channeling her own chakra into his body. She could scarcely believe his power, or the fact that Orochimaru had fallen to such low levels by disrespecting the in this fashion. Even Jiraiya was glaring at his former friend as whatever sympathy he had left in his heart had vanished. Hanzo and Galatea along with Kisame were standing protectively around the group, ready to defend at a moment's notice. What's the plan? Asked Kisame with a grin, not at all affected in the presence of such monsters. Naruto weakly grinned as he got back on his feet now that his chakra reserves were fully restored. He sent a thankful nod towards Tsunade, who returned the gesture. Edo Tensei is a kinjutsu that uses a living vessel to revive deal souls back into the living world. Tobirama was the one who created it, but even he could not perfect it. It's possibly one of, if not the most and well-guarded secrets of Konoha, explained Naruto seriously. And how do you know this? Asked Jiraiya with a frown. He had taken keen interest in the past to keep an eye on the growing spy networks, and yet Naruto had knowledge of such a grave technique. My spies are everywhere, Jiraiya, whispered Naruto, and left it at that, completely ignoring the growing frown on the white-haired man's face. Can it be broken or countered? Or better, can we K these guys? Asked Kisame nonchalantly. They cannot be K, answered Naruto, pointing at the reanimated former Hokage and Minato. But the spell can be broken. K. Orochimaru would not stop it. We must force Orochimaru to release the jutsu and let these fallen souls back to the afterlife, pointed the king. That settles it then. Since you are the only one who knows most about this jutsu and have powers that can force Orochimaru to release it, it is our job to make sure you reach him, declared Hanzo. Naruto saw the others nod in agreement, making him glance at their enemies who also prepared themselves, sensing the upcoming battle. Outside he glanced the battle still going on between Konoha forces against the Union. Now that their trump cards were trapped in this barrier, or in the other one containing the sealed Tobirama and Obito, Union forces now stood a chance at victory provided their king stopped Orochimaru here. He had marked Tobirama and Obito with anti-teleportation seals so that they could not interfere anymore. But he doubted it would stop the Nadaime for long, so it only increased his existent problems. Naruto. He glanced up at Galatea, who looked him right in the eye. Make our count. His grip on his sword tightened on those simple yet powerful words, knowing that any of these 5 could possibly against those Hokages and Minato. But it was a risk they were all willing to take just so that he could reach Orochimaru and stop this madness. And it was not just their lives on the line, but those of the Union forces, because if he failed then their army would be from these people around him. There was no one other than Mei powerful enough to even combat these monstrous Hokages. The fate of the Kazekage was still unknown. He knew he had to force Orochimaru to release the jutsu no matter the cost or else. He glanced at the scroll still present on his hip and steeled himself before looking back at Galatea and the others. I promise I'll stop him no matter what happens. When they all stepped forward, Orochimaru gave a mocking smile. Done with your little chat. If you were smart then you would have not let that happen, said Naruto sarcastically, earning a laugh from the fifth Hokage. The conspiracy of weak little runts doesn't scare me, for none of you are strong enough to defeat these shinobi, claimed Orochimaru, pointing at the revived S-warriors. He narrowed his eyes when Naruto simply smirked. Perhaps not them, but strong enough to defeat a coward like you. Orochimaru was about to retort until he saw Kisame finish a set of hand seals at lightning-fast speed. Kirigakure no Jutsu, hidden mist secret technique. Within seconds, a heavy mist spread across the entire barrier, obscuring everyone's vision. Orochimaru tried hard to see but could not, so he raised his sword protectively and commanded his puppets to prepare for an attack. He sensed Hashirama about to charge, for the mist would not stop the first Hokage with his legendary sensory powers that would allow him to detect the hidden enemies. That was until Orochimaru felt something grab the first Hokage from behind and with a sudden yank threw the reanimated sea towards the walls of the barrier. Hiruzen moved to counter but was suddenly surrounded in a dark purple smoke screen that rendered his vision completely zero. But before he went down, the reanimated Hokage relayed the image of a large chameleon-like creature moving around in the mist to Orochimaru through the shared connection. A summon. Orochimaru felt Jiraiya and that a Megakure blonde woman named Galatea move in the direction where Hashirama was sent sailing, while Tsunade was on top of the summon-like creature which was sporting quite a lot of chakra. But Naruto and Kisame Hoshigaki were nowhere to be seen or felt. Orochimaru knew those two men were the most dangerous in this mist, for Naruto was a trainer who functioned best in such environments, for his swift K, and Kisame could fight in this mist even with both hands tied due to his training as a Kirigakure ninja. His instincts proved correct when he sensed his first attack and easily raised his Kusanagi sword in time as Kisame's Samehada clashed. They were mere inches apart from carving each other out, and then Kisame saw something that stopped his impossible. He was proven wrong when Orochimaru passed right through him with dark red Mangekyo eyes gleaming in triumph before he gave a wide horizontal S on Kisame's back. He swirled again, this time to finish the Kiri swordsman with a beheading when sparks elicited as his sword now clashed against a three-pronged wielding Naruto Uzumaki. Like your S-brother's eyes, Naruto-kun? Asked Orochimaru with a mad laugh. Naruto dared not look into the dangerous pair of Mangekyo Sharingan activated in Orochimaru's eyes. Not only had the bastard survived the wounds received from their last battle, but now he had also had stolen Obito's eye. But despite his rising anger and disgust, Naruto noticed out of the corner of his eyes that both Mangekyo were different in shape, meaning it could only belong to two different users. Last he had heard, Obito had S alongside two Uchiha boys named Itachi and Shisui. It could be that one of them had a Mangekyo which Orochimaru was using for his own benefit. Having already seen Obito's teleportation ability and power to make his mass invisible, Naruto knew he was in dangerous territory here, but what power the other eye had was unknown, which made him keep his silence and focus on the fight. Nor could he dare to look at his opponent's face or risk exposing himself to the Mangekyo's power. Orochimaru smirked as Naruto created some distance between them by jumping away, but the power of the Mangekyo allowed the Hokage to see the mass of chakra in Naruto's body even through the thick mist. Taking these powerful eyes from the Uchiha boys had been the perfect call, one that might save Konoha after all. Now it begins, Naruto-kun, whispered Orochimaru dangerously. Naruto raised his own sword again, looking anywhere but in Orochimaru's eyes. It ends here, Orochimaru. The both charged forward, swords dancing in the air only to meet with loud clangs. Orochimaru tried to kick his enemy's jewels, but Naruto turned his body, evading the blow, following up by sending his left hand containing a three-pronged kunai towards Orochimaru's sea. This time it was the Hokage who easily angled himself out of the way as both opponents clashed swords, repeatedly sending sparks everywhere. As Naruto parried blow after blow, he noticed Orochimaru's speed with the blade was getting faster and faster. The Hokage was also moving his entire body so swiftly and fluidly, making it extremely hard for Naruto to hit him anywhere. It was as if Orochimaru didn't have any bones in his body. One moment they were locked in a dance of swords and the next Orochimaru simply flashed right through Naruto, but before he could attack from behind, the king disappeared into dark smoke and appeared above Orochimaru, his sword descending downwards. Orochimaru smirked and instantly parried Kusanagi against Naruto's flaming sword, but was surprised when he sank to one knee from the amount of force Naruto had placed in the attack. He's strong, thought the Hokage bitterly. Naruto had already thrown his special kunai behind Orochimaru's feet when he disappeared into smoke, allowing him to instantly teleport behind his enemy's back, drawing a gasp from the Hokage, but as Naruto tried to his sword, he passed right through the dark-haired man. But as Naruto started falling as he lost his hyper-fast momentum, he sensed Orochimaru's rising B and made his move. Dakiryojin. Dark Release. Illusions. He tore through the Hokage's mental barriers, invading Orochimaru's mind by connecting with the B, overpowering the snake's body. And what he saw shattered his entire world. Medical Division. Akeno hastily moved through the large tent, observing the woman on the nearest bed. One glance made her grimace and she made a cross on her forehead with a marker and then moved on the next shinobi as the other medical assistants gave the Kunoichi some painkillers to ease her passing. She moved from wounded to wounded, marking most of them with crosses, for there was nothing they could do for them. The few who could be saved she marked with zeros and helped the other medics in saving their lives. It was chaos, with wounded screaming in agony, medics shouting quickly, sometimes even angrily when they didn't get what they needed. Exhausted medics sat in a corner trying to recuperate their lost chakra, and the few who were still standing did their very best to save as many lives as they could. But the sheer number of wounded that had came in were in thousands, and there were not enough medics to handle such a calamity. She could not imagine what was going on the battlefield, but looking at the sight around her, she knew it was really bad. Her instincts were proved terribly right when she spotted some Uzumaki carrying a very familiar bulky boy into the tent. Daibutsu. As she ran towards the boy, she stared some Suna shinobi dragging the Kazekage behind, as well attracting the direct attention of the exhausted medics who desperately sprang into action despite nearly being out of energy. The death of a Kage, that too the new leader of the West, would spell a great disaster for the Union's future. But Akeno couldn't care about that man as her friend and teammate was placed on the bed before her. They had already lost Yahiko and Kyusuke. She glanced at the heavily breathing boy who looked at her weakly. Daibutsu, she whispered, as she glanced at his wound and passed her chakra-coated hand to ease the pain, knowing the boy's innards were torn by some powerful jutsu. He weakly raised his hand upward, eyes glazed with a weak smile on his lips. Wait, for me, you pricks. Tears fell from Akeno's eyes as she now knew that her friend was already fading away and there was nothing she could do for him. And she didn't need to imagine as to who he was calling out to. With one hand still easing his pain, she used her other remaining hand to gently stroke the panting boy's cheek. Go to them. Yahiko, Kyusuke and you will wait for us, won't you? Asked Akeno with a sob. Kyusuke, you perv. Don't harass noble fairies this early, and Yahiko, stop staring at their mumbled Daibutsu with that weak smile of his. Akeno sobbed heavily as the boy's hand fell back limp to the bed and his eyes lost the light. With trembling hands and falling tears, she joined both of his hands and closed his open eyes. And cried. Nagato batted away the sword of his enemy and him clean through the H. Without stopping he kicked a Kunoichi trying to sneak towards the Uzumaki, maintaining the barrier that was holding the trapped Nadaime Hokage along with Obito. He charged forward and buried his sword in the downed woman's head, ending her life. Above him Conan flew rapidly through the air, taking down any enemy forces that got too close. Nagato, can you see anything? She yelled, while firing another dozen paper shuriken from her body. He looked at the massive red barrier shrouded in mist, knowing his best friend and many of their comrades were in there fighting for their lives. No, he replied frustratedly. Damn that, stupid man. Is there any way you can get me through that barrier? Asked Conan angrily, as she evaded a dozen shuriken and kunai aimed at her. Nagato unleashed a massive fireball, incinerating a group of young Konoha Chunin that were about to attack the Uzumaki barrier team. I don't know what the hell kind of jutsu Naruto performed. It's more powerful than anything I have ever seen, replied Nagato, parrying away several kunai thrown at him by angry Konoha forces. Looking around he saw the battle was at a stalemate. Now that the Konoha forces had realized they couldn't get to Orochimaru, they were trying the damn best to free Tobirama and Obito, knowing that if they succeeded the already decimated Union forces would be finished easily. As such, Nagato was forced to position his remaining forces all around the barrier with the hope of stopping the enemy forces. They had already suffered massive casualties and even more wounded thanks to the reanimated Hokages. Even the Kazekage was wounded badly thanks to Minato. Conan's eyes widened when Nagato suddenly froze as his face went deathly pale. Two Konoha Junin appeared right beside him, and were it not for her punching them both away, Nagato would have s. She roughly grabbed her friend, looking at him furiously. "Don't freeze like that, Barker," she reprimanded, watching out for any new enemies approaching their way. "Daibutsu, he." Conan clenched her fist shut and stopped the lump in her tea. After taking a deep breath, she placed her hand on Nagato's shoulder, who looked ready enough to cry. "You're the Union leader, Nagato. If you fall here, then Daibutsu s for nothing," she whispered. "I came here with 7 friends and now I've got just 4 left. Can we survive this dark night?" asked Nagato in despair. "We have to." He looked at the grief in her eyes, knowing that those 3 boys were more dear to her than they were to him. Conan grew up with those 3 and he could only imagine her grief after losing them all in a matter of hours. "Why?" She gently grabbed his hand and placed it over her belly. Nagato's eyes widened and his face turned even more paler. When that was done, the beast protectively stepped beside them and sniffed Conan, which made her smile. She then looked back at the shocked Uzumaki with all the strength left in her. "For your godson." Nagato hesitantly knelt and placed his other hand over her belly. Now that he focused his sensor powers solely on her, he could feel the faint life inside. It was so tiny, barely even a small flame, but it was there. Naruto's child. He didn't know if it was a boy or not, but Conan seemed sure despite any evidence, but then again a mother's intuition could hardly be wrong. The despair in his heart lessened a little as he gripped his sword before rising to his feet. Conan smiled weakly when she saw a determined look present in Nagato's eyes. For him. Orochimaru smiled cruelly at the kneeling boy as he screamed in agony. But this scream was not one of pain but of heartbreak. "Your entire life was a lie, Naruto Uzumaki. Your beloved village was the one who forcefully stole you from your parents, raised you to be the perfect little soldier that believed his parents abandoned him. Made you fight for them and do horrible things when they were the ones who ruined your life in the first place. You started a war that was never declared by Konoha itself but only a few ambitious people like Danzo and me. Your actions led to the death of thousands across the world, your own father and brother who only had love for you in their hearts so that you can live in the delusional world of yours. And that is your real truth," explained Orochimaru. Naruto's shoulders were completely slumped, his eyes downcast as he remembered the memory of seeing the second Uzukage forcefully taking him away from his crying mother and broken father as Orochimaru, Jiraiya and Tsunade along with Hiruzen watched. He remembered Katsuro Uzumaki, Lord Third, teaching him that protecting the village and their clan was the most important thing in the world, never mentioning the fact that he grew up alone and miserable only because of that same village. He remembered seeing the memory of only Danzo and Orochimaru plotting to end the Uzumaki survivors. Never had Hiruzen or other Konoha shinobi wanted warfare. He remembered his own father telling him a false tale before going to his death, knowing that the truth would break his son's faith in his village, in his clan, in his war and in himself. He remembered his mother backing that same tale, knowing her son would not be able to accept the dark truth of his life. Tears fell from his eyes as his clenched fists crashed against the ground. He could hear Orochimaru laughing at him, mocking him, but he couldn't say or do anything now that he knew it was all true. Thousands families destroyed. What did the rebellion truly lead to? All those soldiers out there fighting in your name, all those friends of yours who following you, if only they knew they didn't for justice or change. They for a monstrous lie. Mocked Orochimaru. Orochimaru picked up his sword and started walking around the broken boy in circles. Just one blow would end this all and there was no will left in the boy to fight. But just a little more fun needed to be had. Lord Fourth, King of the North, Man of Honor, laughed Orochimaru mockingly. "Naruto, my name is Naruto," whispered the broken boy. "Is that truly your real name? Or is that a lie as well? Do you truly even know who you are, boy?" asked Orochimaru with a sneer. "All you ever spread in this world was pain and suffering. I am a monster, but I don't shy away from what I am. But you lived such a magnificent and grand lie, it amuses me, said Orochimaru with a chuckle. Naruto remained silent as Orochimaru performed a set of hand seals that started to make the mist inside the barrier disappear. And what he saw shattered what little strength left inside of him. Hanzo lied flat in a pool of his own bee, his salamander summon not visible anywhere. This is not some fairy tale, Uzumaki Naruto. There are no heroes or villains here but only monsters with different flags and ambitions. You tried to change the world, but the truth is the world will never change. There is no place for honor or kindness in this world full of lies. The only thing that has ever mattered is power, fear, and the desire to accomplish one's own goals no matter the cost, spat Orochimaru. Naruto glanced at the bee fighting going on outside where his lover and best friend were trying their very best to stop enemy forces from reaching the trapped Nadaime Hokage and Obito. Seeing them fight like that returned the lost light in his eyes. They had lost and just as much as him, possibly even more. And yet they were still not giving up, for in their eyes was a belief. Jiraiya's eyes widened when Orochimaru smirked and his sword right at Naruto's en. Only for the broken boy to raise his own sword and block it. What? Hissed Orochimaru. Tsunade stared in shock as the Hokages stopped moving and the blank gazes stared at the downcast boy. Indeed, my life turned out to be a lie. I started out as a monster and did many terrible things, and that solely lies on my shoulders. But Orochimaru gasped when a swift punch connected with his family jewels that sent him sailing away as the broken boy got back on his feet. These people who followed me, those who for me, those who still believe in making this world a better place. I cannot fail them. I am not worthy of the love and loyalty I have received, but in the end I choose not to believe in someone like me but those brave souls who never gave up, said Naruto with a faint smile. Why? Despite everything. Because I believe in them. And for the dreams, I will never give up. Jiraiya stared in disbelief on hearing those words. His entire life he had believed Minato to be the one who would change the world, but all along it had been the Yellow Flash's elder son. People could lose faith in themselves, in the dreams, in their beliefs. But he chose not to fight for himself but for those he cared about. Even if his life turned out to be a giant lie, he never wavered. For in this twisted shinobi world full of lies, treachery and hate, this young man still chose to believe in others. He was not the strongest shinobi or a truly righteous man who had not committed any sins himself, but he had something that perhaps only a rare few humans ever possessed in themselves. He saw the best in people. He chose to believe in people despite a possibility of a betrayal. It was not the wise choice. It was not the smart move. But Naruto Uzumaki still made that choice. He didn't start out as someone who people could look up to. He couldn't stop his hate and caused great suffering, but despite it all in the end he chose to become a better man. An honorable man. You, snarled Orochimaru furiously, as he got back on his feet, rage boiling in his eyes. I am Naruto Uzumaki, King of the North, and this is my choice. In the blink of an eye the Hokages and Minato appeared around Naruto, but he simply smiled. But his next action changed everything forever. Two Narutos appeared right behind the forms of Hiruzen and Minato with massive dark orbs swirling in their hands. Impossible, thought Jiraiya. Rasengan. On the other side of the battlefield, inside the second barrier, both Tobirama and Obito saw two Narutos appear before their immobile forms and grabbed them by the shoulder. Orochimaru rushed towards the original Naruto, who ran back at him. The Hokage's Mangekyo rotated, making him Shunshin right in front of the boy as his other eye also finished its move and Kusanagi nearly an inch away from Naruto's H. The boy vanished. The Hokage's eyes widened when he saw Naruto appear above him by catching the three-pronged kunai in his left hand and a massive dark orb in his right. In his hyper-fast Shunshin by using Shisui's Mangekyo, Orochimaru had been unable to detect the kunai Naruto had quickly thrown above him, and the 3 seconds that had passed had left the power of Obito's eye spent. Rasengan. Before he could blink, another three-pronged kunai sailed right at him and Naruto appeared instantly. Orochimaru screamed and screamed, not from the monstrous pain but for the fact that he could not see anything anymore. He raised his hand quickly to his face and to his horror he saw a river of bee leaking down his cheeks. Still, he edged upwards towards his most desired and prized power only to find 2 empty eye sockets. No. Tsunade flinched as she saw her former friend and teammate howl in horror. Jiraiya sympathetically looked away and particularly avoided looking at the butchered Mangekyo Sharingans that lied torn on the ground thanks to Naruto's sword. Naruto stood above his arch-enemy pitifully staring at the miserable man as his hands desperately searched for his lost eyes. And for the first time, he felt Orochimaru's true fear. Looking at his clones, Naruto sighed in relief on seeing all of them had bound themselves to the reanimated shinobi, rendering him immobile for the moment. The king glanced at the scroll on his hip. He had been so sure that he would be forced to use it to stop the trembling man before him. But in the end, Kisame actually turned out to be right. He had overestimated Orochimaru. Now that he was able to glance at the memories of the panicked Hokage, he saw the Edo Tensei that was used was not perfect. Despite all his attempts, Orochimaru had not been able to revive these legendary shinobi at their full power. Instead, he managed to reanimate them at barely half their strength. Not bad for a first try at such a dangerous jutsu, but ultimately it worked in Naruto's favor. Pretty anticlimactic for their final battle, but Naruto was thankful, for it was because of Orochimaru's failure of not being able to truly use Edo Tensei fully that the Naruto would live today and not forced his life and rot in hell forever. And then the swordsman noticed the king's disapproving gaze. "Piss on your honor. He talks too much," replied Kisame flatly. Naruto sighed before placing his hand on the Hokage's head and connected himself to that fear burning far and wide in Orochimaru's heart as the older man felt his own life ending. A possibility he could never have imagined even in his worst nightmares. In the end, it was not great power, jutsu, or deception that brought an end to the war, but the will of a heart and the speed of one man. When he forcefully managed to make Orochimaru release the jutsu, Naruto turned around and saw the Hokages and his father's be glowing. His other clones also dragged Tobirama and Obito in front of him. While the Hokages disappeared, his father and half-brother lingered staring at him with smiles on their faces. To their shock, Naruto bowed before them with tears in his eyes. "Thank you. Please look after Rin for me and don't harm my village's people anymore, brother," requested Obito. "I promise." The two brothers stared at each other for the first time in their lives without hate in their eyes. "I will never forget what you did for me, Obito. And I am truly sorry for all the pain I put you through," said Naruto sadly, but the Uchiha simply grinned. "You're not that bad, after all. Who knew the white wolf was a soft of heart?" winked Obito. "Wait for me, brother. Maybe someday," whispered Naruto hopefully, earning a smile from the Uchiha. "Yes, someday. Till then," agreed Obito, showing a last thumbs up before his soul vanished away, leaving father and son to stare at each other. Even as his body continued to wither away, Minato walked towards his son and embraced him in one last hug. "Father, it is not who we are that matters but what we choose to be that defines us. You rose above hate and anger, willingly put aside your own feelings for the sake of others. Those qualities of yours are the things that changed this world," said Minato proudly. "What I did, all the suffering that I inflicted," replied Naruto tearfully, clutching his father even more fiercely. "The only way to atone for that is to keep on struggling for the rest of your life to keep the peace. It is your responsibility now and one I believe you will truly fulfill. The road might be difficult from here on out and you will face many challenges, but remember to never let go of justice. Protect the weak and innocent, punish the guilty, and protect the human society from those who wish to spread chaos and misery. Make the shinobi the protectors they were truly meant to be for mankind." Naruto gently broke the hug and saw the faith and pride that Minato had for him, which gave him strength. "I will, father." Minato cheekily smiled back at him. "Make sure to give me many grandchildren and look after your mother." Naruto tearfully nodded as Minato's body was now engulfed in light. And Minato's parting words would forever define the way his son would live for the rest of his days. Live with honor, Naruto Uzumaki. As the yellow flash vanished away leaving behind a broken sea, the survivors saw Kisame drag the half-S Orochimaru to the center of the barrier. The Hokage was weakly trying to stem the B flow from his end but in vain. Naruto got up on his feet and walked towards the half-S man. From the corner of his eyes, he saw the fighting outside had stopped completely. The remaining Konoha forces were either fleeing or paralyzed on seeing the reanimated warriors vanishing and their Hokage in this state. Naruto glanced at Hanzo, who was breathing harshly, but soon it gave him a reassuring nod, relieving much of his tension. He could not watch any more of his people Jiraiya was walking away, not willing to watch a dear fallen friend meet his fate. The king's friends and soldiers watched as he gripped his sword and stared at the whimpering Hokage. I, Naruto Uzumaki, King of the North, sentence Orochimaru, the fifth Hokage, to death for his war crimes against the Union and his own nation. The long sword borne by previous Uzukages swiftly came down, severing Orochimaru's head from his en, and moments later his sea was fed to the unforgiving flames of hellfire, turning the S-man to ashes. The third great shinobi war was over. Dawn. The morning rays of the sun the darkness that had shrouded the world for the past 2 years. The revolution had ended, but the true journey had just begun for those who survived. It was a new day for them all. A future purchased at the cost of a lot of violence and but with it came a true chance to perhaps change the world. Whether it was right or wrong, only history would define. As each survivor tried to pick up the pieces of the changed lives, several questions were ever present in their hearts. What will happen to their world now? Will the people truly be able to create the future they had all dreamed of? Or will their ideals and dreams be tainted again with the passage of time? Where would this new path lead them all? But despite those fears, there was hope, and a promise in every heart to give the best so that one day things could truly change. That was a vow they all took on that fateful new day of their lives. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.